I want to bring in senior advisor for the Harris-Walz campaign, Ian Sams. Ian, I want to ask you about that ad. Why that on debate day? But also, how's Kamala Harris doing?
The former president has a notoriously thin skin. And so when you're on a day like today where the vice president, who's ready to take him on head-to-head on stage, you kind of want to get in his head a little bit. And I think it tells actually a larger point. It's that President Trump is only about himself. He only talks about himself. He only talks about his own perceived slights and enemies. He only talks about who he wants to enact revenge on. He's obsessed with himself, and he's obsessed with his crowd sizes and her crowd sizes, and he doesn't know how to talk about real issues that people care about. And so I think part of what we're doing is reminding the country that is who Donald Trump is. We announced earlier today some of Trump's old friend Anthony Scaramucci will be here at the debate site here in a couple hours talking exactly about this, about how Donald Trump is only out for himself and not the country. And I think that's a contrast that we'll see from the vice president on stage tonight, where she's going to be talking about her actual agenda to try to help people on the issues that matter most: high costs, bringing those down, protecting people's freedoms, including reproductive freedom. Those are the kind of things that she's going to be focusing on and emphasizing on stage. We'll see what President Trump does. He's already on Truth Social tweeting about my colleague Michael Tyler being on Fox News and how upset he is. And so I think some of this is maybe getting under his skin a little bit.
And you've already called the debate rules, which were already set, disappointing. In particular, the muted microphones. So how are you adjusting the strategy to deal with that?
Well, look, I think it should surprise nobody who remembers Senator Kamala Harris on the Judiciary Committee dais questioning Brett Kavanaugh, questioning Bill Barr, questioning Jeff Sessions to the point where he said, whoa, 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 you make me nervous. This is someone who wants to be able to prosecute the political case against Donald Trump. And unfortunately, with the microphones muted, she won't be able to question him directly and jump in when he's lying or making misstatements about his own history and record or about her history and record. Instead, we'll have 2 minutes and 2 minutes of kind of structured time where they get to speak. She's ready for it, though. She's been prepared to be able to use those 2 minutes to really speak to the country about her agenda to lower people's costs and help their lives. But obviously, that dynamic prevents a true debate. It prevents them from being able to engage each other in exchanges, which unfortunately, I think will give a little bit of limitations on her ability to prosecute the case against him as strongly as she could.
Didn't they once in the first debate with Joe Biden actually leave both mics open? Is that a possibility, do you think? Is there any thought that for some specific exchange, there might be 2 open mics?
Well, that'll be up to ABC to make that decision. Obviously, that did happen at least once in the debate between President Biden and former President Trump. So, if there's a moment where maybe they are engaging each other directly and ABC makes that decision, that'll be up to ABC. Unfortunately, it's not in the rules. But, moderators have a lot of discretion in a debate like this. You guys have moderated debates and know how that goes.
And to that point, the fact-checking, the moderators did not fact-check in the CNN debate. ABC says that in some instances they will. You don't want to go down a rabbit hole and spend all of your time following up on things. Will Kamala Harris use her time to fact-check him?
Well, as the vice president said in Pittsburgh the other day, he lies a lot. So it's going to be very hard to keep up with how many lies he tells. And I agree with you. David Muir and Lindsey Davis, they can't waste their whole time spending 5 minutes trying to debunk every single lie he says. But I think that what the vice president will do will be ready to call him out when he says something that's false or misleading, so that the American people who are tuning in understand that he's lying on stage. But she's also going to really focus her time on sharing with the American people who she is. A lot of people maybe are still getting to know her.
Well, the polling shows that so many people say they don't know who she is.
Yeah, people may not know that she was a prosecutor in California for almost 2 decades, became the attorney general who took on gangs who are trafficking drugs and humans across the border, took on big banks, got $20 billion for California homeowners during the homeowner crisis, was a senator, has been the vice president for 3.5 years.
They
want to talk, but I think
know her policies.
Absolutely, and I think that her story, who she is, where she came from, growing up in a middle-class family with a working mom, those things guide how she views policy. When she talks about taking on corporate price gouging that's raising prices for people, it's because as an attorney general, she saw companies ripping people off and she took them on. It's connected to who she is as a person, and I think you'll see her talk about that on the debate stage tonight to help the American people get to know her a little bit better.
We've heard a lot about her preparation. It doesn't surprise anybody. We had someone on earlier in the day who worked with her in the prosecutor's office. They said that's who she is. She prepares. But tell us about her mindset, her approach tonight. Does she have any little things she wants to do before she goes out to do the debate?
I'm sure she's getting ready and maybe listening to some pump-up music. We'll see if that's the case. But she does like to prepare because she takes this very seriously. I think that with Donald Trump, this is a guy who doesn't necessarily take it all very seriously. For him, it's all about himself, his TV show personality. She takes this seriously because she knows that there's high stakes for the country and for the American people. So when she's preparing, she wants to make sure that when she gets up there under the bright lights tonight, she knows the facts. She's able to, communicate her vision to the country most effectively in a 2-minute window. And so that's the kind of focus that she's bringing to her debate prep, and what she's been focusing on over the last few days is how to make sure she's maximizing her opportunity on the stage tonight to introduce herself to so many people who are still getting to know her, and to communicate her vision, separate and distinct from her role as vice president, but what she would do as president, what she would prioritize. That's what she's going to be talking about tonight.
Ian Sams, great of you to stop by.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
being
so
here.
much.
Yeah.
Good luck tonight.